Alright, I want to talk a little bit about guns. Big guns, little guns, handguns, machine guns, field guns, and even fucking ray guns. That's right, ray guns. Not just that, but I'd like to have a little chat about bombs too. Short bombs, big bombs, hand bombs, cluster bombs, and even those cheeky little fuckers that children like to stand on. Or missiles, perhaps. Long range, medium range, short range, ballistic and cruise, ICBM, SLBM, surface to air, sea to land, ship to ship on nuclear. And why do I want to talk about all these things? Maybe because we make the lot of them. That's right, this sceptred isle, the epicentre of the empire and the birthplace of the Beatles, is the second largest arms exporter on the planet. Second only, of course, to the bastion of liberty herself, the good old USA. In fact, out of total arms sales annually, roughly accounting for over $100 billion worth of sales, British companies somehow managed to account for nearly a quarter of that. So, whether it's tanks or typhoons, small arms or intelligence, the UK is open for business. But who are we selling this catalogue of demonic battleware to? Is it to Hogwarts to fend off Voldemort? No. Perhaps to the Citadel of Gondor to fend off the advancements of the Dark Lord Sauron? No. Most of it's to fucking Saudi Arabia, for the large part anyway, but also to lovable holiday destinations as Jordan, Israel, Oman, Zimbabwe, and China. In fact, we sell arms to basically every single human rights abuser on the planet. In fact, our biggest customer, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, a nation who beheads gays but thankfully won't let women drive, currently has over 1,000 Brimstone missiles on order from a factory in Henlo, along with a series of combat aircraft and training for such aircraft, only to be used against Yemeni civilians. But don't worry, the aircraft don't even need to land anymore because American buddies of ours can now refuel the fuckers mid-air, for a small fee, might I add, from bases strung through the Persian Gulf. We build them, Saudi Arabia knocks them down. Get it? And you might assume that a nation actively benefiting from conflict might be potentially destabilising for global peace. And you'd be right, of course it fucking does. Of course companies like BAE or any of its subsidiary companies actively benefit from war. So stoking tensions in the Middle East is just good for business. Why? Because 60% of British arms sales go to the Middle East. For fuck's sake. So the British government has every reason to walk over to Saudi Arabia and metaphorically whisper, "Iran called your mum a cunt," and then run off. So King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud then rings up Hussein Rouhani and says, "I heard you called my mum a cunt." And then we have some kind of Shia Sunni deathmatch arms race whilst the chairman of BAE and Heckler and Koch rub their grubby little claws together in excitement. Just like they did when they actively sold weapons and intelligence to both sides of the Iraq-Iran war in the 1980s, just because they wanted it to go on for a little bit longer. Because peace just isn't profitable. And you might pacify this behaviour in your own head by convincing yourself it's good for generating tax revenues. Perhaps it's good for the NHS. Perhaps it builds schools whilst knocking others down. Well, maybe, but you'd only really assume that until I told you that taxpayers actually subsidise the arms industry. That's right, subsidise. And should one of the clients of one of these big companies default on its payments, don't worry, because the British government have passed legislation saying that you, as a taxpayer, will have to cover that cost. Just like when Jordan or Libya defaulted on their hundreds of millions of pounds worth of arms sales, which you had to pay for. That's right, you. I said it earlier and I'll say it again. Just remember, peace is not profitable.